Hello, everyone. Welcome to... What were you just saying, Glenn?
Nothing. I was talking over you, and I realized I shouldn't do that.
Oh, well, thank you.
It is neither polite nor professional.
So
I'm not going to do that anymore.
Thank you.
I'm not going to do it at all. Gonna be quiet now.
Wow. All right. I'm just gonna make you disappear. Marie, you wanna take over? Just kidding. Hello, everyone. It's another LoFi history. See, we've already got our usual suspects here. Robert, hello.
Hello.
Hello, Fry.
Hi.
Hello, Olivia.
I should have started doing quick.
Yes. And hello to everyone who is joining us today. If this is your first time at LoFi History, this is your chance to ask Marie and Glenn any history question that you like. So, and Matt is here. Hello, Matt. So if you have a history question, you can go ahead and chat it below. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and we are on Twitch. So we'll be taking questions from all of our lovely viewers, wherever you are joining us from. But as usual, we want to talk about the sweet duds that y'all are wearing. So Marie, you got some fancy clothes going on today. What is your outfit today?
Here, I'm going to stand up. I'm also wearing jeans with this. Oh, you can't even see it. Okay.
There are no jeans there.
So there are no jeans. So I have a natural form bustle dress going on, as you can see.
A natural form bustle dress?
Yeah, so natural form bustle dress is when you don't actually have a bustle. You just have your behind. But you do have still fabric all poofed up here. And then I have a...
That's like 1870s, 80s?
Yeah, so this is early 1880s. Is when this pattern is drafted from, and I am wearing a dinner bodice, which means that it has a little bit more of a neckline here and also shorter sleeves.
Okay, so something that you would wear in the evening as opposed to the daytime, a little more fancy.
Yes, it's a fancy occasion. It's LoFi history.
Yeah,
Whoops.
I love it. Yeah, Glenn. Well, I guess Glenn and I both didn't get the memo, but so Glenn, earlier today you were interpreting a World War II soldier, and I see that you've got some of your outfit from that on today. So what are you wearing today?
Well, let's start from pre-broadcast. What was it you said, Marie?
Oh, that you have a sweater that looks just like that.
Yeah. She basically said it doesn't look like you wear anything different at all. This is my everyday clothes. This isn't exactly my everyday clothes.
It looks very similar.
It's very similar. So, World War II soldier, again, I didn't wear all the kit today because I wanted to be comfortable, but it's still a little chilly here in Georgia, so I have the GI knitted wool sweater. It's very, very comfy, and GIs, if they can get a hold of these, they would love it because they developed, this is the time period where the military finally adopted the concept of layering. Rather than saying you have a uniform for this, you have a uniform for this, you have a uniform for this, they said we're going to give you different components of clothing so that you can layer for different types of weather and topography, I should say. So this is one of those layers, just a wool sweater, and this it's called a liner, wool, helmet, technically. Most of you probably recognize this as the thing Radar O'Reilly wore in MASH. Its common name was a Jeep cap. It's like just a wool boggin with a cardboard bill here, and it can fold down over your ears and provide a little warmth there. And the idea is that it could provide some warm cover for your head if you're wearing a helmet. That's why this is here, because it kind of helps the helmet sit there and at rest. But of course, GIs found that it was a remarkably comfortable piece of headwear and wore it by itself. And apparently none other than George Patton absolutely loathed this garment because he thought it was the most unsoldierly thing he'd ever seen, and American soldiers wore them by the tens of thousands.
Oh my gosh.
Because it is comfy. It is very comfy, which is why I wear them every day.
And I mean, they're not too far off from Marie, you'll probably remember the old early 2000s newsboy beanie caps. So they kind of made a comeback. So maybe Marie can bring back the bustle era. Glen can basically wear the same thing anyway. and still get away with it.
Right. I'm quite comfy right now.
Yes. Oh, we have some more people. So Daggerwin, hello. Oh, they say I watch these videos a lot. We're so glad that you've joined us. And thank you for chatting. It's always great to hear from you guys in the chat. Alma says, hi from San Diego. I usually join you while sewing. Today I'm crafting. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I'm curious to know what you're crafting today. And we got Fried that says, Glenn, you need to step up your dress game. I agree.
Fine. Let's see what I can come up with next week.
Yeah, we'll see. Karen says,
like full
I have got a little lazy. I will confess. I'm going more for comfort than for
you're gonna
historic
show up
awe.
in like your Knights crusading
Who
Knights.
knows what I'll be wearing next time?
We'll find out.
Helmets may
Karen
be involved.
Says, hello, I always love the sunglasses. Yeah, they get to be cool. I can't see the screen if I have my sunglasses, unfortunately. And we have some questions. Yay!
Yay!
Now, one question's pretty funny from Roseanne. How do historians hold all those facts in their head? But for real though, I mean, have y'all always been suited towards absorbing just that kind of information, or is it a matter? I know that, like, for me, I can't quite get a grasp on like exact dates and names and stuff, but I'm usually pretty good. If I'm interested in something, I'm gonna take away, the lesson or the story of it. But what's that been like for you as historians?
I've always memorized things very easily.
Oh yeah, so you kind of have that kind of memory.
I have what my parents would call a photographic memory.
Nice.
And I just kind of remember things. Like when I was like little kid, I would remember like what color shirts people would wear, like the last time I saw them.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was like that I was that child.
Yeah.
But now I just remember facts about dead people.
Or soon to be dead people.
Yes,
Sometimes,
right,
yes.
Yeah, if it's recent history. No, I think, this sounds trite, but I think it's accurate. People like what they like. And if someone likes something, they're going to learn about it. They're going to retain it. The people who like math know math, and they can remember the equations, and they can work stuff in their head and things like that. I think it's the same for historians. And, that's why, professional historians tend, when they get into the ivory tower academic world, they start to specialize, because that allows them to really hone in on something that I hope, they like.
I'd be very sad if they wrote books about things they hated.
That's part of the fear. Here's an insight. When you are going for a thesis or even a doctoral dissertation, when you're writing it, you, in theory, have to write it on something that hasn't been written about before. And of course, the more people write, the narrower and narrower that gets. So sometimes I know some people who have written them just because it was something that hadn't been done, and there's the best dissertation is a finished dissertation.
Yes.
So they write it, and they may never touch that piece of history again in their professional career. They've moved on to what they like, hopefully.
Now, did you write a dissertation?
I wrote a thesis for my master's program.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was fun. It was fun. I was able to maneuver myself and do it on a topic or a series of topics that I squished together that I enjoyed learning about and that I had already known a little bit about.
What was it on?
Yeah, what was it?
So it was. I'm trying to remember the exact title. See, in effect, it was a thesis on the idea that war accelerates social, political, and economic change. And to look at that in a specific type, I looked at the city of Atlanta during the Civil War, World War I and World War II, and I looked at the different ways that the city grew economically, that it grew socially with equal rights and things like that. And, those changes in history always occur. But I posited, and most people tend to agree with it, that conflict accelerates those changes. I think it was Leon Trotsky that said that war is the locomotive of history. History's still moving on the track, but war pulls it along at a much more rapid pace than if it was just being pushed along the track. So that was my thesis.
Very cool. Yeah. So we do have some questions for y'all, and one funny question was, do you have a teddy bear like radar as well?
Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
I
Good.
still have it.
You still
My
have
teddy
it?
bear that I got when I was 3 months old. His name, cleverly, was Teddy Bear.
It's pretty good. It's pretty
And
good.
I held on to him, and he still resides in my bedroom. Thanks,
So
Mom.
you're right on. Yes.
Yes, I don't carry him with me, but he is there. So
Now, a more serious question. We have from Robert on YouTube. Can you explain why people say New Orleans was taken by the Union Navy during the Civil War?
yes.
Because it was?
Because-
I don't know anything about it.
No, so New Orleans was created and has been a point of contention in many conflicts in the North American continent because it controls the Mississippi River. Right? And and it's not just the flow of water. You have to remember that in a pre-railroad, or even actually for a lot of times a post-railroad economy, waterways are the superhighways of the world. Commerce and people travel by water much faster and more efficiently than they do over land on animal-drawn carts. So the Mississippi, being the largest river with so many tributaries going into it from all of North America, makes it the superest of superhighways in terms of markets and economies. And the Mississippi comes out where? New Orleans. Right? Not exactly at it, but it's sort of like the big town that controls the flow there in the Gulf of Mexico. And so it is economically important. It is strategically crucial. So the way to bottle up the Confederacy's trade was to take New Orleans. And so, being a naval town, being there on the coast and up the river, you have to have the Navy participate in that along with the Army. It's the exact same reason the British tried to go after it and take it in 1814 and 15, right? When Andrew Jackson was defending it during the War of 1812. It's the same reason that Thomas Jefferson wanted to buy it from Napoleon in 1803. It is absolutely essential to, at that point, almost a fifth of the entire American economy. And so, therefore, also the Confederate economy. So that's why it was so important for the Union to take that city and block off the Confederate trade. In a nutshell.
Yeah. We also have Fried says that Marie has the fancier stuff every week. Fancier and fancier. We have another Civil War question. This is from Daggerwin on YouTube. Did General Winfield Scott really introduce the Civil War Grand Anaconda Plan? Or can you explain what that is?
Yes. Yes, I can. And yes, he did. Jump in if you want to at any point on this, because I know this. Do you know the Civil War stuff? Do you know this one?
Yes.
Go.
All right, so Anaconda Plan is literally, it is named after the snake because that's what they're going to do. They're going to strangle the Confederacy like an anaconda strangles its prey. So what do you do? How do you strangle? Well, you take over the Mississippi and New Orleans. That's how you get that side, and literally that entire side of the country. Then what you're going to do is that you are going to barricade all of the ports on the Atlantic side of the ocean. So you're going to blockade Savannah, you're going to blockade Charleston especially, because that's huge. And also South Carolina. They're really the ones who started this whole Civil War thing. So a lot of the Union people wanted to specifically punish South Carolina because upstarts wanted to come down harder on them because they blamed them for a lot of
Sherman did.
Oh yes. If you thought Atlanta was bad, wait until he paused in Savannah and then went back up to South Carolina, and that was
rough.
we get ahead of ourselves. So, and then you are going to, well, you have strangled on the two sides. You're going to put pressure on those. You're going to blockade that. Vicksburg is another one of those ports that they're going to strangle in the Anaconda Plan. And then you're going to break through the center. And that would be what Sherman really does, is break through the center of that. Strangle from two sides, then break it in half.
During the Atlanta campaign.
Right? And you're going to go through what a lot of people would consider to be the empire of the South, which is Georgia. So you're going to go through and basically destroy the biggest railroad hub that the South has, and then tear up communications, railroads, and anything else that gets in your way.
And it worked, right? The strategy worked, and yes, it was Winfield Scott who, in the very beginning, came up with this plan. The problem was, at the beginning, everyone thought he was crazy because, number one, as always, the war's never going to last that long, and number two, never. It's not going to last that long, and number two, we don't have the resources to blockade the coast of North America and the Mississippi River and the armies to split the entire region in two. Well, by 63 and 64, they did have the Navy and the armies to accomplish that goal. But yeah, that was more or less the strategy as envisioned by Scott, and it's more or less the strategy the Union used to win.
Nice. We have another question. Oh, one comment. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Makes Mistakes. Thank you for hosting us on Twitch.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. So, let's see. We have, Alma says, we were inspired by Marie's American Girl doll video to read Addie's books. And we were trying to get a hold of Cecile and Mary Grace's books now. Alma's craft was also American Girl inspired. It's American Girl Frappuccinos. Using little plastic cups and ornamental halves and caulking and cotton balls and paint. That sounds so cute.
That is
That's cool.
so cute.
Yeah, so if y'all didn't have a chance, we had a really great live stream program with Marie about American Girl dolls. We have 3 of those programs now. So if you go back to our YouTube channel, you can find all 3 of the programs about the historical context of American Girl dolls. Thank you so much.
And I have a question for you about
Yeah.
those, and it's just me being curious. So the different dolls, right, the different girls, are those limited runs, and when they make a batch and then when they're done, or can you still get the old ones if you get online and go to their website?
Some and yes, some no.
Okay.
Sometimes it's never quote unquote a limited run, except sometimes with the doll of the year, but that's not part of the historical characters.
Right.
Okay.
They used to be called historical characters. Now they have rebranded and they are Be Forever.
Be Forever.
And they have redone the books, and they confuse me greatly because they took 6 of them and then made them into 2, and I don't know how they did that.
I see.
So I still refer to it as I knew it in my childhood, and that is the historical characters, and there were 6 books. And I refer to the book names as they were when I was a child, and I read them. In case anyone out there is confused as to what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it in my historical context. But the historical characters, I can go on for this for a while too, so stop me if I need to. They started out in the 1980s with 3 different characters, and that's Samantha Parkington, Kirsten Larson, and Molly McIntyre. So you have what they call their Victorian doll, but she's Edwardian. It's 1904. Queen Victoria is dead. It is no longer the Victorian era, and I don't know why they market it like that.
We're going to have to write them a stern letter.
I am.
Surely you wrote a stern letter when you were young.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh.
I did email their company several times, but that was not
Dear American
girl.
doll.
So anyway, I don't know why they say she's Victorian. And I mean, she's 1904. It's right
Because
there.
people know Victorian, but if you say
Very
Edwardian, they don't know.
Well, Edwardian's a very, very
Not in America,
time
we
period.
don't know what that is.
And that's very true. Because it's very much based off the reign of King Edward, and it was also a very short reign because his mother had reigned for so long.
Yes.
But so you have and then you have Kirsten. She's a prairie doll. So she's 1854. So she's Homestead Act doll. Well, actually that's before the Homestead Act. So she's just prairie doll. Goes out and lives with her, immigrates from...
Is she the Laura Ingalls Wilder doll?
Basically,
yeah.
She immigrates from Sweden and then goes and lives with her uncle and her extended family. They all have a plot of land out in Minnesota, and they're the Swedish immigrants who live on the prairie.
Oh, Minnesota.
And then you have Molly McIntyre, and she was the 1944 World War II doll.
She's the one I know.
Yeah.
Because Molly Ringwald was in that movie.
Oh yeah, the Meat for TV America.
Yes.
Yeah.
I may own a copy.
And then they expanded from there. So now we have, I believe the oldest doll is Kaya, who's a Native American girl doll. She's from the Nez Perce tribe from 1764. And then now it goes all the way up. They just released the newest historical character from the 1980s, Courtney.
1980s Courtney.
Yeah. She has leg warmers and a boombox and little beanie babies.
That's awesome.
And Care Bear pajamas.
Kind of Places your existence in context. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Well,
Ugh.
American Girl doll, they've gotten really smart in their marketing, and that is when they think that basically the mom's generation, like when the time period from when when the mom was the doll's age,
I mean, that makes
and the daughter has now come of age for American Girl dolls, they release that
it
doll
makes perfect sense
for the moms to buy for nostalgia reasons for their child. Because that's what happened to me. Because my mom, was like a kid during the 1970s.
Yeah.
So when I was like that age, they released Julie, who was the 1970s doll. And of course, like my mom was going through the magazine. She's like, I had a record player just like this, and like it was so cute. And like you get to learn more about your parents and like what their childhood was like.
It's like the day I heard GNR in an elevator, with as an elevator song, right? Man,
That's pretty fun.
They've expanded a lot since then. And then sometimes they put characters in and out of retirement or into the archives, and then they bring them out of the archives, and then they like rebrand and do like whole new stuff. Usually all the same stories, they might package them differently.
right.
But sometimes they've gone back and forth. So I think there are some historical American Girl dolls that you can't get they're like the doll and the clothing and the accessories anymore, but you can still buy their books. So usually they don't discontinue the books, so you can still read the books.
That makes sense.
But the doll things are archived, so you can't get Cecile and Marie Grace anymore. They were very limited in their run, and they have, from what I can tell, no plans to like bring them back anytime soon. And then there are different ones that like once they've been released, like they've always been there, like Addie, Josefina. They actually did take Samantha away and then bring her back. And then they took away Kirsten and she has not come back. Sometimes they do that more to, like they took away Kirsten and then they released Cecile and Marie Grace. Because Kirsten was 1854 and Cecile and Marie Grace were 1853. So when they retire a doll, you know that they're about to put out a new doll that's very close to that time period.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they always have like the time periods covered for the most part. I mean, and then as we move forward in time, like you get new 1980s dolls.
Right.
But it does seem like I have noticed a trend towards more quote unquote modern
60s,
American Girl
70s,
dolls.
80s. Yeah.
They were just released like a 50s and a 60s doll, and like those seem to be super cute and doing really well. But not as much as like the 17 and 1800s dolls that they had more of when I was growing up. But also there was less of the 1900s. So
Yes,
I was born in the 1900s, folks.
And so was I, barely, but I was.
So was I. All right, guys. So let's go on to another question. We have, let's see. Now, Fried has an interesting question. Glenn, would you insist on saying it is war that is the locomotive of history, or would you be fine with competition? This seems like a philosophical question.
No, I would stick with war, I think, because when you say competition, you're including everything. You're including military competition, which is war. You're including market and trade competition. You're including different things like that. Warfare tends to focus the attention and the energies of a people, whether that is a tribe or a nation state, and or even a specific locality within the larger people. It tends to focus their energies and force them, as a result, to reevaluate their cultural and social mores and values while going forward. The example I will give, because this is what was in my thesis, in World War II, comparatively, the United States, when it got to 1944, believe it or not, was suffering from a severe manpower shortage. Right? They simply could not get enough men into the field, and so they had turned to women to come into the factories. They had racially desegregated a lot of government work, a lot of factory work, a lot of war production work, because the need for production to win the war outweighed the previous social mores that caused and reinforced segregation. But again, economic competition may not necessarily achieve that it won't achieve that nearly as rapidly as a military conflict and struggle, because national survival is at stake in that military contest. That's my philosophical take on it.
Fried says they agree with you on that,
Okay.
So you're lucky this time. I also wanted, before we take our next question, I wanted to, Fried says you wanted to add on a question. I like my peace, but I like my progress. That's why I posed the question. Yeah. So I also wanted to give a shout out to some folks that had donated toward our February monthly donation goal. We're at 85 now, so it's still early in February.
Yay.
So I wanted to show our leaderboard to just give a proper shout out to everyone. So thank you so much, Eric Falls, for a $50 donation.
Oh, yes.
We had Erelina with $10, Anonymous, who saw the American Girl Dolls presentation and really liked it. Another Anonymous, and Stella, as well as Hands on Homeschool Academy.
Oh, nice.
So it's really great to have all of these different folks joining us for all of our programs. And of course, a lot of the programs that we are doing right now, we gotta still remain mostly digital.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have this monthly donation goal to sort of help us, because we are not getting the amount of field trips, on-site field trips. And while we are people in the local area, it's a great time to visit
That's
a nice
right.
quiet day in the museum with all these cool things.
Plenty of room to social distance.
Yes, yeah, tons of room. So if you are in the Gainesville, Georgia area, come on down. We are open. But
And say, isn't there a brand new on-site program opportunity going on a monthly basis, Marie?
Why, yes, there is, Glenn.
Fantastic. Could you tell me about it?
Yes, we have Saturday. We have Saturday spotlights. So, because we cannot do our giant on-site family days that we normally do on Sundays, that's where the Sunday came from. We are now doing Saturday spotlights, where we have, instead of a lot of really fun stations, we just have one station, so that we can try to keep the crowds down a little bit more and everyone's social distance. But we still wanted to be able to offer at least a little bit of in-person programming in a safe way, to keep our public interested, and also our wonderful volunteers and living historians and interpreters coming and giving them something to do as well. So we have come up with Saturday Spotlights, and that is on the first Saturday of each month going forward. We were not sure how long this program will last. It'll last as long as we have no family days.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I will give a plug too, and then we can move on to more questions. But many of you watching are new friends to us with the digital programming, but man, you should have seen the family days when we had them going before COVID hit. We'd have 200 people in here all at once. We'd have 10 or 12 different stations, interpreters, dancing, everything, right? And it was hands-on, and it's such a great program, and I can't wait to get those going again. And hopefully we can pull in some of those folks, some of our digital members. I think we'd even talked about maybe having a few digital member spots when we actually get to an in-person family day, just so we can still keep y'all not agitated. That's not the word.
Involved.
Not and maybe if I aim at Fried, maybe it will be agitated. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but our family days are not gone. In fact, we do have a virtual family day this weekend, this Sunday. We're going to have programs every hour from 1 to 5 p.m., ending at 5 p.m. with a live virtual trivia. And this month, our theme is, Marie?
Voices for the Vote. So we are going to be talking about women's suffrage and the passage of the 19th Amendment.
Oh, and thank you so much, Roseanne, for
Yay,
your $15
Yay,
donation. Thank you so much. So yes, we're going to be diving into women's suffrage. You're going to hear the famous Ain't I a Woman speech by Sojourner Truth, portrayed by the fantastic actress Ciara Richardson. We're also going to have crafts that you can easily do from home, so you can make your own paper suffrage sash. What else do we have? I mean, there's a lot. There's a 1920s dance and fashion lesson. We got a whole lot going on. So check out our Facebook page. We'll have the schedule on there. or our website. We hope that you'll join us for that. And thank you again so much, Roseanne for the $15 donation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we blabbed enough. Let's get some questions.
All right.
Okay, so Robert asks, can you talk about the Lost Battalion from World War I? I have a feeling this might be a question for you, Glenn.
Yeah, I can a little bit. It is not this specific battalion is not an area of my expertise, but World War I happens, and it takes the United States a while to get into World War I officially as a co-belligerent, as Wilson and Pershing referred to us, not as allies, but as co-belligerents. And the U.S. Army, when we finally declared war, was very small. It was 120,000 men. We had 1,500 machine guns in the entire U.S. Army and 120,000 men. At that point, the British had almost 1 million men under arms and 80,000 machine guns, just to show you how far behind we were. So we finally start getting troops into Europe. It really isn't until the late spring and early summer of 1918 when we get significant numbers. And along one of the sector, the Americans are trying to get in and basically get involved in the fighting. And during one of the actions, they are pushing forward, and the Germans are really good at defense, people. They've had 4 years to perfect how they defend, their defense in depth. It's not just one trench. There are just lines and lines of things. And so the Americans push forward, and then they get surrounded, and an entire battalion goes up. And this is at a time when the British and the French aren't really sure about how their American allies are going to perform under the real duress of massive trench warfare. And this is a time when the Germans aren't exactly sure how the Americans are going to react either. They think that since they're new, they're just going to be able to push them away. Well, one thing the Americans bring with them is their soldiers and their officers haven't been ground down by 3.5 years of horrific trench warfare. They are, as the term later would be, gung-ho, right? They want to get at the Boche. They want to get at them. And so this battalion does get surrounded, and the Germans attack them from every side, and the Germans are absolutely shocked at how resistant the Americans are. Now, the Americans take heavy losses, and the commander of this battalion, whose name I cannot remember, continues to send messages back as he can, and he's saying, please send reinforcements, please send reinforcements. And the American division commander won't send them because he's afraid that the battalion's written off, and he can't spend more men on it, so they're just going to have to write that battalion off. Well, the battalion holds on and continues holding on, and so this division commander's like, I'm not sure what to do. Should I reinforce them and go help them? Because if I do, I'm afraid I'm going to lose the entire division. Long story short, they do eventually get reinforcements. The battalion loses well over half of its men killed or wounded, and the commander of the battalion ends up getting the Medal of Honor awarded by Congress. But the things that he had seen during that fighting, he took personal and emotional responsibility for that horrific loss of life, because he's the one telling them, hold on, help is coming. Hold on, help is coming, right? And help doesn't come. He does, and after the war feels incredibly responsible for that loss. He feels like he let his men and his unit down, and after the war, he suffers from depression and eventually commits suicide because of that. But that lost battalion, the story of the lost battalion, really sets the example for how Americans are going to participate in the Great War as it moves on to its conclusion in November of 1918. And it establishes the U.S. Army not only as someone who can hold their own, but as someone who can be preeminent, let's say, in the warfare of the time.
Sounds like a fascinating story.
Well, and actually, what I'll leave it with, there actually is a made-for-television movie with Rick Schroeder as the battalion commander. And you know what? It's actually pretty good.
Pretty good?
Given that it's for TV and everything,
right.
It's actually a pretty good version of it.
Well, cool.
All right.
Good suggestion there. We also had a friendly reminder that we do have your Zoom forum tonight, Glenn.
Oh, that's right. We sure do.
Any members out there, so we do have our digital memberships. We have a forum tonight with Glenn, and Glenn, you're going to be talking about the Trail of Tears tonight.
Right, a legal injustice.
Yeah. So if you become a member, a digital member, or if you already are a member, you can join our Zoom forums as well as our other members programs. So I'll talk about our other programs coming up a little bit later, but I have put a link into all the chats if you're interested in becoming a member. It's a great way to support us, and it's a pretty good bargain.
Yep.
It is.
$3 a month if you want some history.
Or $35 a year.
That's right. So our next question actually comes from one of our homeschool students, our Homeschool Connection program. And so in Homeschool Connection the other day, that was literally yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, time. We talked about the Industrial Revolution. And this student, although if you want to let us know which student you are, we'd love to know. But they just mentioned they were in the Homeschool Connection program. So that they really found that interesting, and we should do a little review of what we learned yesterday, which was quite a lot. We learned so much in Homeschool Connection. I learn a lot too. So, but one of the things that I was really fascinated with was one, the types of textile innovations. So we talked about things like the spinning jenny. What is a water frame? So Marie, could you just give us a little introduction to the types of like innovations in the textile industry in the first industrial revolution?
So yesterday in Homeschool Connection, we went over the two industrial revolutions, the first and the second. So the first industrial revolution was very much centered around textiles, so fabric and manufacturing, and making those things better. So we talked about just 3 of the inventions out of the, we highlighted 3 of the inventions from the first industrial revolution, and that is the spinning jenny. And the spinning jenny was a easier loom, as well as the water wheel, or the water frame, I should say, which is basically a better spinning wheel / spinning jenny. And we also talked about the flying shuttle, which made it to where one person could weave a length of cloth much easier than they had previously. You had to pass your hand all the way through the loom and your arm. And with the flying shuttle, you can do so with just pulling a couple of threads in it. The shuttle flies this way and then flies back. And this makes it so people can weave larger pieces of cloth at a time. Oh, my hand disappeared. That
big. I'll actually pull up a picture that I found of the flying shuttle that you're speaking of. So bye, Glen. So there's that image
shuttle.
of
Speeds
the
up
flying
weaving.
shuttle. Yes, and then we also have so the water frame. It's this water powered, and I'm also gonna take up your space, Marie. So we got this water powered textile machine, and my other picture didn't work. What was the other one? The flying shuttle?
Oh, so there's the flying shuttle, the spinning jenny, and the water frame.
Yes, yeah. So we talked about all of those yesterday, and
as well as many more, but those were 3 that we highlighted from the first industrial revolution.
Yes.
As well as the steam-powered everything.
That was pretty...
Steam-powered everything.
Steam-powered everything, pretty much. You got your locomotives, you got your... What else? I don't
know. Boats.
Boats. So if y'all are... if y'all have homeschool kids, or if you are homeschooled yourself and you're joining us, or you have a connection to homeschool groups, we have an excellent program called Homeschool Connection, which is hosted every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be starting up again with a new curriculum in the fall, but you're free to join anytime. It's a good, diverse age range as well. So, I mean, we have students, it's geared towards 2nd through 6th grade but we do have, one of our students is maybe 7 or 8, he's young and he really enjoys it, so he's one of our biggest fans. All right, so let's dive into some more questions. We have, What are some interesting World War II fiction books for middle graders? So maybe ones about spies or code breaking, daring fights. Do y'all have any recommendations for middle school age? Glen's like, no,
I don't. I mean, you know,
I can think of several.
Yeah.
Well, then
okay,
you go,
great.
because I never read nonfiction. Or I never read fiction books. It was all the nerd stuff for me. So you've got some good ones.
See,
probably.
historical fiction is like my bread and butter. I love historical fiction books. If you are in middle school, you might be on, depending if you're early middle or perhaps later middle, is where you want to fall on that. Because there are, of course, the American Girl doll books, Molly, Homefront, World War II, highly recommend, but middle school might be a little bit on the higher age range for enjoying those. If you are interested in a nonfiction book, there is, of course, The Diary of Anne Frank. That is nonfiction, but very much very important book centered around the life of Anne Frank and what it was like for Jewish people during the Holocaust and hiding in Amsterdam is where her journal is written. So there's, of course, that one. When I was in middle school, I did this thing called Literary Guild, and I'm trying to think of all the books I read for that, because there was a whole historical fiction category, one of which was Summer of My German Soldier, which was interesting. It was like a runaway German soldier. There's also a really good one called Number of the Stars. That one's really good, again, about the Holocaust. Another historical fiction about the Holocaust is Devil's Arithmetic, that I read and also thought that was very good.
There's also the Who Was series.
Oh, yeah.
That's if you look up Who Was or sometimes Who Is, they're still alive. But there's a lot of great sort of mini biographies of famous historic figures.
Might be a little on the young elementary side.
Oh, you think? Okay, so maybe.
I think the Who Is series is more younger elementary.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, so those are a few.
Yeah, just a few that I can think of.
Our next question is very timely. Did you have another one?
The Book Thief.
Yes. Oh, The Book Thief. That's
Read
a good
The
one,
Book
yes.
Thief. It's a great book.
So, Cruiser wants to know, all right, y'all, can a former president be impeached?
We'll see.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
I mean, it's one of those things where the Constitution is non-specific on it, right? It doesn't say that the president has to be sitting. It doesn't say that the president can't be done after. Here's how I'm going to dodge that question.
We're watching history being made.
We are, because one of the genius aspects of the Constitution is that it had to be flexible and vague. And it had to be flexible and vague because all the interest at the time at the Constitutional Convention would not agree to something concrete and hard set, right? So it's so they have to allow a lot of leeway in what they're saying is going to happen. The balance between states' rights and popular votes, and who gets to vote, and what will the representation be in the federal Congress, and how will the Supreme Court work. So the document is made to be very flexible and interpretive-y. But that has also led to a lot of issues, right? Because it's not specific and clear. So, that's my answer. Is we'll see. We'll see if an impeachment goes forward. The impeachment has gone forward. The trial in the Senate is going to happen. Depending upon what the outcome may be, the outcome may be appealed, which would then go to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court will decide the constitutionality of it based on their particular interpretation of the Constitution and precedent.
Because there is no precedent for this.
Not at all.
Which also is a large deal with legal things.
Yes.
Right.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, has there ever been a moment like this in the past where there's been a trial post Yeah, so
Not
we'll see.
for a president, And
So we are living in a historic moment.
Yes.
So
As we have been for the past year.
yeah, right.
well,
right.
technically, we always live
Always
in
live.
historic
I guess
moments.
we're always
We
in historic
truly-
moments. That's true.
We just have realized it, I think, perhaps more in the past year.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
pandemics don't happen every year, so
Nope.
aren't we lucky? All
As,
right.
as the Chinese curse goes, may you live in interesting times.
Yes, the Chinese curse.
Yes.
Right.
Not a blessing, but a curse.
Yes. All right, so we have a question from Gavi. Gavi wants to know, why are generations named and how do they get their names?
Oh, that's a good one.
This is a great question. I have no idea.
Do you want to take a stab at it? Because there's not really an actual answer.
Yeah, generations don't usually they haven't been named until Tom Brokaw decided to name the World War II generation the greatest generation. And then we started in with boomers and things like that. And then it was Generation X and then millennials and then Generation Z. And so I think we just picked up on that and have just started to run with it. So if you start thinking about, the generations of the 1780s.
There's also the generation before the greatest generation that got a name because I think they wanted a name after the people after them got a name.
I want one.
Exactly, and then we have so we have that, and then we have the boomers, and then we have Generation X, which I thought was interesting because Generation X was supposed to be just a placeholder until something happened.
Until they got some name.
Until they got a name.
Until we got some name.
But then, are you going to be offended if I say things about your generation?
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Nothing remarkable happened, and that's why it's just X.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well.
Maybe it's because we held it all together.
There you go. There,
The
there's
next
a
year's
good
kind of
thing.
holding it together.
When you get the generation that's like, oh yeah, that was fine.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
What?
Like that's how you know, like,
Yeah. Here we are.
doing good.
We made
and
it
then
through.
you have millennials who came of age at the millennium, so they got that name because that was like a big
Right.
deal.
And how you define these generations, there's no set hard fast rule. Like, when does Gen X start and millennials end?
Yeah.
Some people say that millennials start in 1980 and Gen X ends in 1979. It's like, well, I mean,
Am I a millennial? Am I a Gen Z? Or Y? Whatever the one that comes
Well, I think
after.
Gen Y is millennial.
Oh,
And then
X.
like the kids who are like
Gen Z?
late high school and early college now are Gen Z.
Okay. Well, I'm like right on that cutoff.
Yeah.
So some studies say I'm one and some say I'm
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
So basically, it seems like it's, when news and other media
Right.
need to refer
they-
to a generation.
Mhm.
seems
it's
like
just
they're the
it's
ones
convenience.
creating it.
Yeah.
Gabby, you be whatever generation you want to be.
That's
It's
right.
true. That's why Gen Z is called Gen Z because after the greatest generation when the naming kind of happened, and then they were just like, okay, so then X, Y, Z, which I don't
Yeah.
know why they decided to start at the end of the alphabet,
That's pretty funny.
but they did.
Because we were an equation.
I guess.
Solve for X.
And then Gen Z has also not had anything like huge, like one letter, like one title stick to it. So it's still that.
Yeah.
It basically is like whatever catches on with the news media is how you
Right.
named.
Yeah. So there you have it, Gabby. It's kind of arbitrary.
Yes, very arbitrary.
You can decide what your generation might be called.
The only thing I'll say that sounds grumpy is that there is no question that Gen X had the best music.
Anyway. Silence. I need a cricket sound effect. So we're gonna take a few more questions, guys. Oh, and that was Josh that was joining us from Homeschool Connection. Hey, Josh, one of our finest students. You have a lot of strong opinions on Tesla. We noticed
Yes.
in our last Homeschool Connection class.
As
We were
I was
talking about
writing, I
Edison.
thought you might have strong opinions on
Yes,
Edison and
yes.
Tesla. And you didn't teach
So from Fried says, years ago, I've seen this video on the topic, British officers don't duck. focus was on World War II, World War I, basically stating that British officers would walk proudly onto the battlefield and not take cover, partly because of their upbringing and partly to raise morale. Have you heard of this before, Glenn? Or Marie?
Yeah, that goes back to the traditional British method of leadership with the officer class. And I do say officer class and not corps, because in the early professional British Army, the regulars, we're talking like, early 1700s up through the Revolution, the 7 Years' War, the Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, all the way through the Wars of Empire, and into World War I, the officer class was generally pulled from the social and economic elite of the country. And as a result, and there, the British caste system is very distinct. It is very noticeable. You know exactly what class you are in this period of Great Britain. And so the officers led in a very particular way based on those class distinctions. And one of the ways officers could show that they were worthy to lead men is to, in effect, show no fear in the face of any danger whatsoever. The British stiff upper lip. One of the best parodies of this, if you have seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I think maybe this is Meaning of Life, this movie. And there's a scene done during the Zulu Wars, and it opens up, and there's an actual battle going on, right? There are men fighting, and the British officer walking around is like, "Good morning, Johnson. Morning. How are you? Oh, quite well. Quite a hot action we're in today, isn't it? Yes, it is. Oh, well, let's go see Kirby over there in the tent." And they walk into Kirby's tent, and the doctor's looking at him. And he's like, "Oh, Kirby, it looks like you've been wounded." "Yes, I have." "Oh, dash terrible, isn't it, old boy?" And the people are fighting in the background. The doctor's like, "Well, I'm afraid I've got some bad news." "Yes?" "Well, your leg's been cut off." "What? No, it hasn't." "Yes, if you look here." He goes, "Oh, by gosh, you're right. My leg is off." "Well, that's darned inconvenient." "Yes, it is, old boy. We'll see what we can do." So that kind of thing is, that's a parody of that, of what you're talking about, but it very much was part of the British officer class. And by the time you get into late World War I and on up into World War II, and the officer corps does open up in terms of class, and other people are getting in, because these are mass armies we're talking about, right? You need officers, and you can't just depend upon a shrinking gentleman upper class to do it. The more egalitarian officer corps still adopts the mindset of the older officer corps, because it's military culture, and military culture changes very slowly.
Yeah. And Fried says, "You're right, it's the meaning of life."
Meaning of life, thank you.
Now, I'm not sure if y'all will know about this next question, but Make Mistakes on Twitch says, "I was horrified to learn about the Parsley Massacre in 1937 between the Dominican Republic and the Haitian border. Do you think that the U.S. should have intervened in that?" I'm not familiar with this.
That one I don't know.
I'm also not familiar with this event.
Yeah, apologies. I know that, early on in the Haitian Revolution, that was taking place at almost the exact same time as the American Revolution, that the newly formed United States under Washington and later under Adams refused to intervene on behalf of the, basically it was a slave uprising on Haiti. And there were so many enslaved people on Haiti that the uprising looked like it was going to go well, but there were also issues with France trying to control the area. And France at that time was a close ally, so the United States politically felt that it would not be expedient to support the slave uprising, even though the slaves were adopting the exact same language and ideals that the Americans had just adopted in their revolution against the British. And there were a lot of racial issues there. There were a lot of political issues there. That's me trying to deflect. I have no idea about the 1937
What
issue.
I've briefly found is that the border between Haiti and the Dominican Republic was the scene of a mass slaughter that has long burned in Haitians' collective memory, but was either unknown or forgotten in the wider world. So this does seem like something that perhaps people are, resurfacing this
Right.
event to actually acknowledge it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
These mistakes. It's always great when we do have topics that we know we should go more into. So I've got an article on this. I'll send it to you guys so you can dive into that. So our last question, actually I think we have 2 more questions. Let's see. Alma's daughter is asking if you can talk about anything about Greek mythology.
Yes.
There's a lot.
We haven't done a Greek mythology live stream yet. That would be, I know that should be
That's
in
a
a
lot.
nutshell version of it.
Yeah.
But I know that you're a fan of Greek mythology. Marie, are you also
I think
interested?
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Incredibly interesting.
Yeah. I guess just trying to think of what we could end on today about Greek mythology. Is there something that a lot of people are not as aware of, Glenn, when it comes to these myths and their meaning for the people of the time?
I think that here's what I will say about that. So different cultures see their gods as specific things and consider them to be of a certain power, of perhaps a certain reverence, but how that culture views and treats its deities, its higher beings, says a lot about the culture. When you look at the Bible, the ancient Israelites viewed their God as the most powerful, the most righteous. He could do no wrong. The Israelites themselves were the bad. In every situation that turned bad, it was their fault. The Vikings, the Scandinavians saw their gods as vengeful, as violent. The Greeks saw their gods not as all-powerful by any stretch, not as exemplars of morality even, right? They saw their gods very often as immoral, as trickable, as not omniscient, very powerful. They could have great influence and wreak revenge on those who did not believe in them. They also saw their gods at conflict one with another very frequently. And so the Greeks themselves, I think that's a reflection of Greek culture and society, how they view their gods. It is very conflict based. There's not a lot of agreement on what the best way to do things, on the morality. The Greeks do not see the gods in their mythology, and that's what Greek mythology is all about, right? It's about tricks and betrayals and incredibly immoral actions that lead to a lot of different issues. The gods don't care about humanity, not really, and a lot of humanity doesn't really care about the gods other than what they can get out of it. I'm not worshiping Mars because it's the right thing to do. I'm worshiping Mars so that he will give me victory in battle, and if he doesn't, I'm gonna stop.
That's a good insight. It kind of puts these figures of gods as more human than you would expect. So
yeah,
they
definitely
kind of,
fallible.
Yeah.
They're also very powerful.
Yes. So
but only in usually one very specific area.
Right.
Yeah.
They had their niche.
Yes.
Niche gods, if you will.
Yes. Oh, now we did have one last question. It is apparently National Pizza Day.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know if y'all know the origin of pizza or not, but that was let's just quickly figure out together if you don't know.
I'll guess Italy.
I'm going to guess it started out as a flatbread situation.
That's what the Pizza Hut placemat taught me when I was a kid. It all comes from Italy.
The word pizza was first documented in AD 997 in a place I don't know how to pronounce. Gaeta? Gaeta? G-A-E-T-A.
Yeah.
Gaeta? Okay. Yeah. But yes, from Italy. So thank you, Italy, for pizza. And wow, we've had pizza for a long, long time. I wonder what it was like back then, though. I'm sure it had to have been very different
Yes.
from perhaps a modern Americanized
Probably
pizza.
so, yes.
Well, and also pizza is regionally different. You
That's
have your,
true. This is
New
very
York
true.
pizza. You
Right.
have Chicago deep dish style pizza.
It's a good no matter what. It's a pizza.
I knew we were going to get a terrible accent in here sometime.
You got to get at
so
least one.
You got to get at least one. Well, y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. I do want to remind you that we have a live stream tomorrow. I'm going to put up a graphic. Here we go. So you can join us for Austin Dabney. This is a revolutionary patriot from the American Revolution. And Glenn, you are going to be portraying Mr. Dabney's friend and fellow soldier, Giles Harris. Now, can you just tell us a little bit about what we'll learn tomorrow?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things about this story is that it is an African American, an enslaved African American who gained his freedom in a very roundabout way through service to the American cause of independence. And in the course of his service, was wounded and was nursed back to health and gained a lifelong friend from a white fellow soldier. And the stories that we know about this person, like I say, are remarkable. That the respect, because of his service to his country, the respect that he was given, even though he was of a different race, a very degraded race at the time, because of his service and his freedom, was considered the equal of many very prominent men in the state of Georgia. He was given land grants by the state as a form of recognition for his service, and the fact that he had a very close friendly relationship with Giles and his family, speaks to the fact that people could get along even in horribly different circumstances than we have today. And if it's one of those, if people can get along then, they can certainly get along now.
Right. And so I'm looking forward to that. Austin Dabney is one of the characters that we also offer for our webcasts to students all across Georgia. So I'm really looking forward to having Mustafa, our wonderful living history interpreter, as well as Glen, portray that story and those characters. And then on Friday, our members live stream, hosted by Marie, is going to be the history of Valentine's Day. So, no, Glenn.
Not the massacre.
Not the massacre.
How can you talk about Valentine's Day without talking about the massacre?
We're going to talk about St. Valentine's.
Come to the members live stream and you'll find out.
That's right. Come to the members
Maybe
live
at
stream.
the end we'll talk about that one.
So Marie is going to give you a program about the history behind Valentine's Day. Where did these traditions come from? Who is Saint Valentine in the first place? We're going to learn all about it this Friday, but you do have to be a member. So if you want to become a member, then you can do so for as little as $3 a month or $35 a year. Woo! All right, y'all, I want to thank Roseanne for her donation again. Got us to halfway to our February donation goal. And I'm sorry if we missed any questions. We had a lot of chatters today, so it was great to have more people here. And if we didn't get to your question, we will be back next week. We do have a webcast next week at 3:30, so we may be on a little bit, just a few minutes later than usual with LoFi. So until then, please stay safe and take care, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully in the live stream.
That's right. Bye. Folks.